I am so excited to introduce to you all Amanda Campbell. I found Amanda through a podcast at the beginning of the year, and her story was just so incredible that I had to reach out to her. I have had her take over my Instagram account and share her wisdom in the past. And since starting this podcast, I couldn't not have her on as a guest. So I'll give Amanda a very quick introduction. Amanda is the founder of Bend Like Bamboo, a program designed to maximize resilience and health. As a sports kinesiologist and motivational speaker, Amanda is one of Australia's leading experts on resilience. She believes that flexibility builds resilience, allowing us to reimagine what can be possible in our mind, body, and life. Overcoming a paralysis at age 29 from MS, she discovered that a flexible mindset impacts everything that matters: our body's ability to repair, how happy and resilient we are, and how connected we feel. Welcome to the podcast, Amanda. It's so great to have you here.
Oh, thanks, Tony. I'm really excited to be here with you today. And what a lovely introduction. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, I love your story. I started this podcast so that I could help educate people on the importance of living a natural, low-tox life, eating well, the importance of a positive mindset. And your story encompasses all of those things. And another thing that I really wanted to share with my listeners is the message of hope, that if people out there are suffering from XYZ, that there are things that they can do. So would you mind sharing with us your story, where you've come from and where you are now?
Yes, no, thank you. I would be honored to share my story. And yeah, I think we all have a story, but I think that for me, my health was a huge issue that I had to overcome. So when I was young, in fact, I'm a twin, and my twin sister Nicole was diagnosed with Crohn's disease when we were 11, and she was quite sick with that, and thankfully she recovered. And then maybe I felt like I needed to go on that path as well. I don't know how that happened, but then we were in our 20s, and I was actually probably about around the age of 19. I first started to experience pins and needles down the left-hand side of my face and fingertips. And so, of course, I thought I should get it checked out. I went to my local GP, and he suggested that I might have an MRI because it may be neurological. And so I went and had an MRI and at age 19, and they found one tiny little spot on my brain. They didn't really know what it was. They couldn't diagnose anything just with one spot. So I just sort of got on with it and just thought, oh, maybe it's nothing. And then 5 years later, my symptoms of pins and needles returned, but a little bit worse this time. So I had a bit of a weakness and pins and needles on the left-hand side of my body, my face, my hand and fingertips now, I think a little bit of my arm and my leg. And so I went and had another MRI, and I had my results analysed by a neurologist this time. And he found a couple of lesions on my brain. And at age 24, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And it was a big shock to me. I did not expect it. I went into that appointment thinking, again, it would just be nothing, and I was fine. It's really interesting what you think of immediately in those moments of what matters. And, you know, the first thing I said to my doctor was, can I have a family? Is this going to impact me being able to have kids? And, he was a great doctor, and he said, in fact, many people go on to live very happy and healthy lives. Living with MS, yes, it is a degenerative disease. Sometimes it can go the other way. We don't have all the answers to that. There is medication that can slow down the progression. But I was just so overwhelmed. I just ran off in the other room and I bawled my eyes out. And it was really tough to take at age 24. And so from that moment on, I think I started to focus all of my energy on what I didn't want and what I was scared of, because that's what we do when we're stressed. We become more rigid, we become more closed-minded, we, get stuck in our heads, we, can get stuck thinking about the past or over-analyzing the future, and we go into worry mode, when you just feel like you're on that hamster wheel. And so I didn't feel safe, and, there was no guarantee of how my life was going to play out. And so, what we believe is what matters, and our thoughts and our mindset is so connected to our bodies. And the more I felt frightened about my future, and I stopped believing in myself, I lost a lot of confidence and self-esteem and value. And, my mum said, you lost the spring in your stride, and I felt it. I really felt it. And I suffered for a little while there, and I did everything I could to distract myself from feeling that way, whether it was being really busy at work. I mean, I'm a really hard worker. I've always been very driven. And I think sometimes that's also been an escape for me to, run away from difficult emotions. So, and, I was in my 20s, so I went out a lot, anything just to distract myself. So I wasn't really looking after myself either. And so 5 years later, my worst fears were realized, and the entire left-hand side of my body became paralyzed at age 29. So my face dropped, my arm, hip, leg, and foot just completely stopped working on the left-hand side of my body. And it took a slow, cruel 10 days. It was January. It was hot. It was summer. I didn't realize that you shouldn't put yourself in a spa when you have MS symptoms, because it makes them worse.
Okay.
The heat. But I didn't have to deal with MS yet. I was diagnosed. I had a few hiccups. I'd never been to hospital. I wasn't on any treatment at that stage. And I was lucky where my symptoms or any relapses I had were years apart. So at age 29, I had a massive blow, and I was checked into hospital. So that was 2009 when I was 29. In January, I was checked into hospital, and I knew going into hospital that I wasn't going to be leaving anytime soon. And I had 3 days of steroids to reduce the inflammation in my brain. And my new lesion was on the right-hand side of my brain, which controlled the motor skill area of much of the left-hand side of my body. So really, you want your lesions to be in areas that are not motor skill. And because MS is a disease of the brain and the spinal cord and the central nervous system, it's in control of so much. So at any time, you can go blind, you can stop swallowing, you can have pins and needles, you can have bladder and bowel issues, gut issues are a huge thing I had to overcome. After that attack of paralysis, I had a new symptom of bladder frequency and urgency. Fatigue is also a common symptom, cognitive changes, anxiety and depression. So your brain is in control of so much. And so I had a couple of days of steroids to reduce the inflammation in my brain, but I still couldn't move. And so they decided to extend that to 5 days, but I wasn't responding to treatment. But luckily I was in a wonderful hospital at Epworth, Richmond, and they transferred me to their rehabilitation centre, where I would live for 2 months. Wow. And I remember going into this shared room, and I was in this room with this gorgeous, really young girl who had just suffered a stroke and lost her voice. And there was just so many stories, so much suffering. And because I was in the rehab centre 3 times a day, I would be with physios, and they would try and get me moving again. I was surrounded by car accidents, people with pins holding their neck together and back. And it was just so full on. And it really changed my perspective of what mattered to me and what was really important. And that was a huge rock bottom moment for me, where I just shared and died. It was almost like I had to die. The old Amanda died, and then I had to create a whole new version of myself. And that's why I'm so passionate about flexibility, and why Bend Like Bamboo is all about mastering flexibility. Because when we can come out of that survival stressful state where we're often rigid and stuck in the past or over-analyzing the future, we're not problem solving well, our brain integration is out, we're not solution focused, and we're too rigid to see things with fresh eyes and new perspectives. So, it really put me back in the moment. And when I was in hospital, all I could think about was, right now, how do I deal with this exercise to get my finger moving? How do I get my toe moving, let alone my leg and my mobility? I couldn't wash, walk, or feed myself, and I couldn't get dressed without help. I couldn't use a phone with two hands. We didn't have iPhones back then, so I switched off my phone for a couple of months. And
That
I
would have been
also
nice.
was just going, it was. I just, all I could do was think about the present moment.
Yeah.
And that really helped me. And little did I know, after all the research I've done now, is what I was actually doing was I was maximizing repair. Okay. Because when we're more focused in the moment, our body sort of changes its mind about how stressed it is, because when you're in the moment, it's like your brain fires signals of, oh, I'm safe. Mm-hmm. And that's how we can maximize growth and repair signals rather than survival and stress, adrenaline and cortisol.
Thinking about things in the future that we can't control and that are stressful, but they're not even happening yet.
And feeling so out of control, my body was absolutely perceiving threat. And so the only way I could change my mind and what my body was doing and how it was recovering. So I wasn't moving, I wasn't responding to treatment. And I knew that something had to change. Mm-hmm. Something about my self, my mindset, my thoughts, my attitude, something had to change. And when I was newly diagnosed, I focused on what I didn't want and what I was scared of that might happen, mm-hmm. that I might end up disabled, bedridden, or worse. And so I went out later and I worked harder and I distracted myself. And I was on a destructive path, and it led to me making my worst fears come true. Mm-hmm. Whereas I was in hospital and I was learning these exercises. And I remember one of my first rehab sessions, I was given these exercises just to make my left hand open and close, just trying to do that. And I was crying because it was so hard. And it was in that moment I knew I had a choice. I could either give up, or I had to change my mind and my approach about what I believed could be possible, mm-hmm. to get different results. Now that's hard to do, particularly you think, oh my God, well, what if it doesn't happen? And I remember my gorgeous cousin came and visited me into hospital, and she gave me this blank, really stunning journal. It's funny that I just thought of that then, because it was this glitter gorgeous journal, and I was too scared to write in it, because what if I entertained how dark my thoughts were at that time of how frightened I was? It was too confronting. So I never wrote in it, and I just started writing in that journal because I was like, you know what? It's such a beautiful journal. I still kept it. It was 11 years ago, and I've just actually started using it as my new journal.
There you go.
I know, how cool is that? So, and so nothing was happening. I remember many days and nights just sitting there in 4 white walls, spending a lot of time alone, just contemplating my future and being permanently disabled from age 29 and what I wasn't going to be able to achieve, not living a normal life, what that meant. And it was a huge grief. It was a huge loss. And it helped me to reset who I was, and what I wanted, just how I approached life and how I thought about things. And then, whilst there was much time alone, I have wonderful girlfriends and family that visited me many times. And there was one night that a bunch of my girlfriends came and put me in my wheelchair, and they wheeled me across the road to a restaurant, and we all had dinner together. And for a couple of hours, I forgot about how hard everything was, and we just laughed and had fun together, and we were just in the moment. And something very special happened that night. I felt a jolt in my brain, and I thought I was just feeling elated with joy and happiness. And I was so happy that I was experiencing joy in such a way that I felt like it was absorbing in all of my cells. Because, the power of polarity, when you go through such a difficult time, sometimes, when you come out of that, you can be grateful just for the little things, which we're all experiencing now in 2020, and what we've all been through is just being able to go out for dinner and just be together. Was simply brought so much joy. And that's exactly how I felt back then. And the power of joy is very healing. And I know that now because I came back to my room and my toe moved for the first time on my paralyzed foot.
That's incredible.
And it was in that moment, something dramatically changed within me because I found hope. I then started to focus and channel my energy differently. Started to focus on what I wanted instead of what I didn't want, because now I saw hope, and I had more courage to put myself out there and push myself more. So I was first in at physio, last to leave. I knew what I had to do, and I started to believe that it could be possible.
Mm.
And what we believe is what matters, and what we believe is connected to those two pathways will predominantly fire, whether we're in survival and stress, firing adrenaline and cortisol, more inflammation, more degeneration, or if your body decides, no, we don't need to prioritize survival, we're going to prioritize growth and repair instead, where we can fire human growth hormone for repair, serotonin and dopamine for happiness, mood, and the reward system. So when I shifted my focus, my body started to repair faster. And within 6 weeks, I started to gain more mobility back. I first started to learn how to crawl again. I started to learn how to put pegs into holes. I had to learn how to smile again because my left face was dropped, and I walked again. And the first moment I walked on my own, it was just profound. And I remember, still well up thinking about it. I remember one of my closest friends was in the corner watching because she rocked up to visit me, and she just saw that moment with my physio, and it was really, really, really moving. And then I ran within 6 weeks as well, because I was working with Gavin Williams, a neurophysiotherapist who's very famous for helping people not only just walk again, but run again with his wonderful program. And I just so happened to fall into the right environment around the right people with that right mindset shift, and very lucky, relapsing, remitting MS, so not progressive, still in the earlier stages of MS. I got onto it quickly, like whether you have a stroke or an MS relapse of paralysis, you need to get onto physiotherapy very quickly to improve your chances of walking again. So it was just all the right ingredients. And then after I walked again, I was still learning how to use my cutlery with 2 hands, and then after being in hospital and rehab for so many months, and I came home and I was so grateful to be mobile again, but it was so strange to be back into the community and society. And then I thought, okay, well, I felt quite depressed, even though I was so happy that I was walking again. Different things mattered to me. I was a different person now, and I was in the same house, same social group, same world, but I saw everything differently. So I had to recreate a whole new version of myself in my mind, in my body, and my life. And so I started to research, and I came across nutrition, because although I was walking again, I still was suffering from frequency and urgency in my bladder. I had stomach issues. My gut health wasn't okay yet. I was on lots of medication that I had to recover from. So I found the power of nutrition through Dr. Terry Walls, and she's a neurologist who also has MS, that has progressive MS, much worse than mine. And she was in a wheelchair and disabled for many years, and drugs weren't working for her. So she had to find another way, and she researched what foods would maximize repair. So I started her food program, and very quickly my MS symptoms started to disappear as well. I was running every day, and I was like, wow, there's something in this. And then one of my best friends reminded me that, I've always naturally loved mindset and the power of connection and energy. And because a kinesiologist, I actually forgot to mention that part as well, is I take a very balanced approach. So whilst I had neurophysiotherapists in hospital working on me, at the same time, I had a family friend come into hospital who's an applied kinesiologist, and he worked on my muscles, helping to fire up the pathways every few days. And it was when he started to work on me, the physios would say, whoa, because they predicted I would never walk again. And then they started to see the results, and they said, oh, you're repairing really fast. And I said, oh, I've been doing kinesiology as well. And so I studied kinesiology because I saw the power of what it could do, and I wanted to understand how the body worked and my mobility and the structure of my body. And that taught me how we think and feel, and what we believe, and our emotions are truly connected to our muscles and our body, and disease and inflammation and degeneration. And I learned that, Chinese medicine, a whole new language. Took me a couple of years to do that. And it was the best thing I ever did, because it really has been the only successful tool I've found that has helped me get down into the deep subconscious aspects of my mind, where I might not be believing in myself or what is possible for me. And that becomes in conflict with our goals. And I call that the inner conflict, is when you want something and that's not enough to make it happen. You have to believe in yourself and what's possible for you. But when we're young and things happen in our lives, we hold on to these ideas of something we might have learned from our parents or from a traumatic event growing up, and we're not malleable or flexible enough, or we haven't learned to do that yet, where we learn to change our minds about what we're believing.
Can I just ask a question on that? Sorry to interrupt. With the whole believing thing, it's something that, a huge driver for me for sharing this information, this podcast, is to get people to believe that there are things out there that they can do. And a lot of the time I'm coming across people and I'm saying, oh, you can try this or you can try that. And how do we get people to believe? Where do you start with your clients?
It's you've got to get down into the subconscious, because sometimes if what we're believing is negative or limiting or uncomfortable and painful, we'll suppress it. And so Chinese medicine and the power of kinesiology connects our muscles to our nervous system and also emotional parts of the body. So for example, the neck and the upper shoulders are related to the spleen stomach meridian, and the muscles of the neck. So typically the emotions of over worry, obsessive thoughts are connected to that meridian as well. So if you're in your head and you're overthinking something, you typically might have a sore neck and shoulders as well. Whereas the lower back and the muscles there are connected to the large intestine meridian, which is all about letting go and grief in our lives. And so if you're going through sadness or grief, or you're not letting go of something, you might also experience physicality and pain in your lower back. So if you want to get to the bottom of what you're believing, it'll also play out in what you're attracting. So we always want to make our beliefs true. So if you're attracting a certain type of guy or a girl in your life, or, here's an example. So person A wakes up and they're late to work and they lose their keys. And this is how, our reactions are a mirror image of what we're believing. And let's say person A is not going through, they're going through a difficult time in their life. They're sort of believing nothing really works out for me. We've all been there. We've all had days like that where we feel like the world's against us. Things are happening to us rather than for us. And you think, oh, nothing's really working out for me. And you lose your keys and you're late to work, and you might respond like this: oh, of course I lost my keys. Not another thing today. Great, right? So that would that would expose a belief of nothing really works out for me, that reaction. Whereas person B might wake up and they're feeling like, no, things are happening for me. They're more elevated in their mindset. They understand that things are happening for them, not to them, and they're not in that reactive victim state. So they might lose their keys, and this is how they might react if they're late to work. Oh, bugger, I lost my keys. Oh, next. It's not going to get under their skin. They're not going to fully react. They're going to be more solution focused, and they'll just move on. So that's another way of exposing what you're believing. And it can be really hard. Sometimes it serves us to believe the negative things, because if you have a fear of criticism and you want to hide behind and keep yourself small, it's going to suit you to believe the negative. So you have to really want to overcome it, to change what you're believing. Now, in my instance, I had no choice but to succeed. It was either walk or don't. So of course, and it maybe took for me to become paralyzed for me to really wake up, because I wasn't listening. And when you're not listening, your body I believe the body speaks to us through physical symptoms. And for me, I couldn't slow down. I was just overworking, do, go, external stimulation, external validation. And I didn't know how to hold my own inner anchor within myself, so that despite external chaos, I could still feel consistently warm and happy and connected within, just like a thermostat. Whereas, there's the best thing you can do for yourself is learn how to feel connected within yourself. And then there's an alignment of your goals with what you're believing. When there's an alignment there, you can create it. It's easier to manifest. And it also creates more harmony in the body, where we're promoting growth and repair.
That's so interesting. And before I get too far down the track, I want to go back to Dr. Terry Walls, was it? Can you spell her last name for anyone that might be listening that wants to look up her work?
Yes. Yeah, WAHLS, and all the doctors that I've researched are on my website under resources, benlikebamboo.com. Yeah, I think it's really important for everybody to do their research. So Dr. Terry Walls, there's Professor Jelinek in Australia. Swank is back in the day, he was one of the first to research an MS diet. There's also McDougall. Latest, and you love this one. I think we spoke about this on my podcast. The Microbiome Diet by Robin Chutkan is also another really good doctor that talks about gut health and what foods to maximize for repair.
Yeah. So you mentioned about your digestive system being completely out of whack, and in light of the whole that gut feeling, would you mind sharing with us the steps that you took to improve your gut health and what you found really worked for you?
Yeah, I think when we're stressed, it really impacts our gut health, and we can have a lot of damage there from our emotions, our thoughts, eating too many processed foods, bad fats, sugar, but really, and our hormones change, but it's all about our thoughts and how stressed we are. And so when I learned these, what foods I needed to maximize, it was a lot of fruits and fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, and my stomach wasn't ready to absorb that yet because there was so much damage there from the medications I was on. So I had to learn. Dr. Terry Walls, her thing is 9 cups of green leafy vegetables. Sorry, it's 9 cups in total, but then there's 3 cups of green leafy vegetables, 3 cups of deeply colored fruits and vegetables, and then 3 cups of sulfur-rich foods are the foods that she focuses on to maximize repair. And so some of these foods rich in color, for example, are rich in lectins, and, there's the deeply colored foods. What am I thinking of? Dark nightshades. So some, and sulfur. These are all foods that can also, some of us don't tolerate well until we've healed the lining of our gut. So I had to take it really slowly. I had to first introduce foods that weren't an allergy for me, and then I had to slowly build up the amount of nutrients and the amount of food that she wanted me to eat as well. So I just had to do it slowly and progressively. And the more I started eating good fats and quality fruits and vegetables, and berries was also part of the program, lots of hydration, I inevitably reduced the bad foods. So sugar we often eat when we're feeling down, it brings us up. And if you really want to reduce sugar in your diet, eating good fats is a great way of reducing those cravings. But I started to feel so good within my mind, and then I was fueling my body so that it could, all the cofactors that were required to fire growth and repair in my system. And I felt it, and I just had more energy, and I could think, and I started to study at that stage. So, that was really beneficial for my brain. And then my symptoms subsiding was just a game changer. Like, there were some symptoms that kept me bedridden, and it was enormous. So for me, because my symptoms were so physical, maybe I noticed the difference in when my gut started to heal and I started to absorb all of my nutrients better. I really noticed it in my mind and body profoundly.
Okay. And so where are you at today in relation to your MS and your MS symptoms? And also what sort of principles do you, like, you're a very, very busy woman. So obviously there's quite a lot of stress in your life. How do you deal with that? How do you keep everything to a point where you're not overwhelming yourself?
I think when I was younger, I was still trying to be good enough and be enough and external validation. So it was all about trying to feel more powerful within me. Whereas now, as I'm getting older, whilst of course I'm still trying to feel good enough, I'm a normal human being, it's more about how can I be of service.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel so deeply fulfilled within myself. And thankfully, I've celebrated 11 years of clear health and clear scans, and every year just keeps getting better and better. I rarely experience symptoms anymore. I think I'm energized by my love and passion for what I do, how I've healed myself, and how now I can share that with others. And so I'm really energized by that. And I've got a mantra up on my wall where it says everything to give and nothing to prove. So I think that changes my stress levels.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us more about what it is that you do with Bend Like Bamboo?
Yeah, Bend Like Bamboo is all about mastering flexibility to enable change, because every day we go through change in our lives. But sometimes we go through bigger change, like when I was 24 and I was diagnosed with MS. And then at age 29, I was paralyzed. That was another massive change. Sometimes we have an ending of a relationship or a divorce or, a business starting or ending. There's many
Loved one
bigger
passing
changes that
away.
come. Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Death, absolutely. So I find if I'm um, maintaining that inner thermostat within me, building that inner anchor within, just like the analogy of a tree that is anchored in the roots, that's how it can be flexible. And I have pillars of health of mindset, nutrition, movement, and connection. And so every day I'm doing that, whether it's meditating, journaling, eating well, reading more books, researching for the love of it, connecting with my family and friends, having enough time for myself. I'm 40 now, so I'm on a new journey in a new chapter, and I love my own company now. Whereas, as a twin and also an extrovert, I love the company of other people, but I've really grown a lot on my journey, and I find that the more time I spend within myself and just trying to be in the moment during the day as much as I can, the happier and healthier I am.
Yeah. Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you so much for jumping on today and sharing your wisdom, Amanda. Where can my listeners find you?
You can find me on my website, amandacampbell.com.au.
Okay. And on Facebook and
And
Instagram?
yeah, and so Bend Like Bamboo. So, and I have a website, bendlikebamboo.com as well, but you can find anything on both websites. So Amanda Campbell is me, the speaker, and I also do, so I'm all about resilience. So I do resilience programs for businesses. And then I have my private practice, and I see clients one-on-one there, and obviously virtually through
Yeah.
the year we've just had. And soon my book will be out next year,
Oh,
called Bend Like Bamboo as
exciting.
well. So I know. So you'll find my all my social media handles on the websites. But if you want to jump on Instagram or Facebook, just look for Bend Like Bamboo.
And I will pop all of those links in the show notes as well. So thank you once again for jumping on. Is there any parting thoughts that you'd like to leave the listeners with, or anything else you'd like to share?
What we believe is truly what matters, and self-esteem and confidence. I cannot I cannot say enough how important it is for us to work on that within ourselves. And the more you can believe in yourself and what can be possible for you, the more you can make it happen and the healthier you'll be.
Beautiful. All right. Thanks once again, Amanda. I really appreciate everything.
Thanks for having me.